most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? So Jesus called them together and said, you know that the rulers in this world lord it over their people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you, it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave of everyone else. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Your opportunity to live on this earth is at most 70 to 100 years, but it is important that in that time your body and mind are united into one, and that you experience the love of God. The basic principle of your mind and body must be that you are willing to serve in both heart and deed. This is my way of life.
That question that Dr. Martin Luther King asked, he said the most persistent question in life is, what are you doing for others? And since it was Dr. King's birthday just last week, we spoke about him very briefly last Sunday. Again, I'd like to look a little bit into that question and how well are we answering it. Dr. King was inspired very much by both Mahatma Gandhi and by Jesus. And to both of them, a life of service to others was so important. Jesus defined it as a new paradigm. He said, the way we see things is that our leaders flaunt their authority over us, and they do things, which I think Jesus didn't agree with. But he said it's not going to be that way with us. But instead, if you want to be first, and I think he meant lead, if you want to be a leader, then you have to serve others. In fact, I think 2 disciples were asking him, can we be the ones to sit at your right hand in the kingdom of heaven? That's what brought these comments from Jesus. So he said, that's not up to me to decide, what you can do. If you can drink the cup with me, then, that's one thing, but he didn't think they were able to. And as it turned out, they didn't. So Jesus, I believe, was emphasizing a new paradigm that he was calling his disciples to live by. They'll know that you're my disciples if you love one another and if you serve one another. That's how people will know. And now that last quote that Christy read was a quote from our true Father, who was saying that this way, this life of service is the way that he lives. That's his way of life, is to serve others. And through that service to others, our mind and our body can become united. And if you study Father's words, he's really emphasized so many times that the mind and body won't become united on anything else except love. But how is that love expressed? It's expressed through service of others, in our families, in our neighborhoods, wherever we are. We're called to serve one another. So, one more question that I would like to ask in regards to the one Dr. King asked, life's most pressing and urgent question, what are you doing for others, is, when we look at our world around us, it's got a lot of strange things going on. And there's a lot of people who would love to take whatever they can get. So in the midst of this kind of world, how do we go forward trying to fulfill these ideals that we're being called to fulfill? Can we live in this world and really serve others? And to what degree? Let's look at the religious realm for just a second. You all know about Mother Teresa and the Sisters of Charity, or the Missionaries of Charity. They are now in 133 countries. I think that pretty much puts them in all the countries of the world. There might be a few more than that. I don't know how many there are in the world right now. over 5,000 sisters who have taken vows of poverty and chastity and are dedicating themselves with their whole heart, that's their motto, to serve the poorest of the poor, those who are dying on the streets and no one seems to care for them. That's how they started. Now there's hospitals, there's schools, there's all kinds of things they're doing. But if you thought, could anybody make money going out and helping those kinds of people? Yet, it's happening. She's being funded by many people who see that as something, fantastic that she and her sisters are willing to do. Now, if you look at us here today, we're just a congregation in a church. We don't have anything like the Sisters of Charity that we necessarily participate in. I want to share a story with you about someone who's just like you, except maybe even to some degree than most of us, maybe worse off. This was a woman in Milwaukee. She only went to church, and that's about the only place she went. She went to church. She arrived as late as possible and left as early as possible because she felt she wasn't liked. And when she went home, her drapes were drawn. She lived alone, and she was facing severe depression. Her nephew, who lived in another town, was worried she was going to commit suicide. And he heard his doctor was going to Milwaukee. He said, "Would you stop in and see my aunt? And maybe you can help her." This doctor was very intuitive. He knocked on her door, told him that her nephew asked him to come, and could I just tour your house? She said, of course, and she took him around from room to room. It was very dark, and he could understand why her life was depressed. But he found one place where the sun was shining in that house, and she was growing African violet plants. And he knew these plants were really hard to grow. They took a lot of care, but she was doing it. So he said to her, "I think I know what your problem is." She said, "Tell me." "Your problem is you're a Christian, but you're not living according to what Jesus is teaching." And she was shocked. And she said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You're a member of a church, and you go there every Sunday, and you're able to grow these plants, and yet, what do you do with them? You should share them with the other people in the congregation. You should make little cuttings," which he saw her do in that area in her home where she was growing them. "Make more cuttings. Buy 100 little pots. And every time somebody in that church is having a birthday, a wedding, a funeral, give a plant and express your heart in a card to them." Well, she was too shy to do this. So he said, "You can do this secretly if you want to." So she began delivering flowers in the middle of the night. And the people in the congregation and the city of Milwaukee were really surprised. Who is doing this? They began to say an angel is making these deliveries. And people began to notice they're coming on the birthdays of people in this congregation. And there was a woman, 85, she was going to have a birthday. Her family decided, let's watch and see who puts this on our doorstep. And she was discovered. And then that Christmas, on her doorstep, were so many presents. And she began to feel, for the first time in her life, hopeful. That maybe it wasn't the way she thought it was. And she began to change and become a part of that congregation, a very beloved part of that congregation, because of her ministry of giving these plants that the people who received them loved them so much. So even though they thought she was close to death, when that doctor visited because of her poor health and her mental condition. She lived another 20 years after that. And at her funeral in Milwaukee, thousands of people came. And the headlines were, "The African Violet Lady passes away." Queen, the African Violet Queen has passed away. So I share that with you because she had a concept, but because someone came to her and changed her thinking enough, she could begin on a new path. And she discovered this is really where she wanted to be. That doctor later said, "I only had that day with her in Milwaukee. I couldn't, help her except just at that moment." But she believed and she followed what he told her to do. So she took a little bit of risk. She didn't really want to do these things, but she took the risk and she went forward. And she was very happy afterwards. I want to talk about one more person this morning, and that's Rahab, the woman in the Bible that you have heard about. I know I've mentioned her before. Rahab was the one who helped the two spies in Jericho before Joshua's people took the city. Do you remember her? Rahab was a person who was not Jewish. In fact, we never heard that she was a convert and became a good Jewish person. She was visited by the two spies, and she lived on the city wall in this city of Jericho. She took a lot of risk one day because the spies came, and she knew they were from Israel. And the king heard about it and sent to her and said, "Deliver these men to us." Instead, she took them up on the roof where the flax was drying out, and she hid them under the grains that had been harvested. She risked her life doing that. The king's men, when they came, she was so cool-headed. She said to them, they left to go back to the other side of the Jordan. If you hurry, you might be able to catch them. And the soldiers took off. And she sent the men up the other way into the mountains and said, after 3 days, go back to your people. She risked her life for them. It was a great risk, and she's greatly admired now by Jewish people, Christian people. She was admired because she knew so little. She knew so little about the Jewish people, but her intuition told her that these people are going to take my city. She'd heard the story that 40 years before, the Lord dried up the Red Seas for the Israelites to cross over. She said, I know about this story, and your God is powerful. So she said, just protect me and my household. And they said, okay, anybody who's in your doors, they won't be harmed. So her father and mother came, her brothers and sisters and their families came, and they were all there that day when Jericho fell, and they were all protected. Rabbinic tradition is that she even became the wife of Joshua. It's not written in the Bible, but that's the tradition that they hold because she did such a great thing. So I mention her today because I feel like she knew so little, but she took these incredible risks. What about us? We know so much. We study a lot. But do we act upon those things that we're studying? Do we ourselves take risks? And how much do we risk? How much, Dr. King said, the great question is, how much are you living for others? So I believe that everybody in this congregation has your African violets. You have things that, you have these treasures that you have no idea how much others could appreciate. But maybe something's holding you back from the ministry of sharing your African violets. I don't know what that might be that's holding you back. But there's so much that needs to be done in our world. Even in our congregation, there's so much that needs to be done. You know, if you serve another person, you've served one person, or maybe their family. You can look at it that way. But here, if you serve this church, how many families did you actually end up serving? There's about 50 families in our congregation. You do something for this church, everybody in the congregation appreciates it. At least I believe that. Sometimes people may not know what you did, and that's, another issue. Or sometimes you may even do something secretly, and you don't want others to know. But the point I'm making is you have things, African violets, beautiful things you alone can do. Maybe there's no one else that can do it like you can do it. I'm asking you to think in this year of 2015 what you can do. What's your ministry? What do you feel called to share and to give? And I want to remind you that after this service, we are having our Sunday school organizing meeting. I believe everybody can teach. So I hope that you've thought about that meeting and thought about what you might like to do for the Sunday school in the coming year. If not the Sunday school, there's so many other places that we can serve. So, brothers and sisters, I want to thank you this morning for your participation in this congregation. And let's work together to make it a more wonderful place for all of us. Thank you so much. God bless. Please join me in prayer.
We're marching to the blessed land of Canaan with delight. We're leaving all our heavy burdens here. At last